I'm Dominic, and I'm 49 years old. I was the quiet genius behind Sinclair Logistics for 20 years. I did not own the name, but I built the backbone. The founder, Mr. Sinclair, is 70 years old. He was the face, but I engineered the entire operational success. I was the one who made the trucks run on time. I was the one who designed the delivery routes. My reward was a good salary and the promise of retirement security. I trusted Mr. Sinclair to keep his word to me. I believed he valued my work more than anything else. The company's biggest asset was a massive, highly profitable contract with a secretive, powerful firm known only as Aethel Corp. This contract was a gold mine. It kept the lights on and the staff paid. Without it, Sinclair Logistics was just another small shipping company. I was the one who signed and maintained that contract. I handled every single detail, every single deadline, every single difficult demand. I never missed a step, not once in 2 decades. The contract was structured to be complex and hard to manage. This was by design. It meant only I could truly run it smoothly. It gave me a unique power in the company that everyone understood, even if they did not talk about it. I was the core of the operation, not just an employee. I knew more about the company than Mr. Sinclair did. I knew the numbers, the weaknesses, and the strengths. I was the secret strength of the business. My presence was quiet, but my work was loud. The problem was Braxton, who is 30 years old, Mr. Sinclair's only son. Braxton was a lazy, arrogant bully who joined the firm last year as executive VP. He was given the title, but earned none of the respect. He walked around like he already owned the place. He inherited the confidence, but none of the competence. He dressed in expensive suits and did nothing but move papers from one side of his large desk to the other. He resented my long-standing authority and the quiet respect the staff gave me. When he spoke, the managers rolled their eyes behind his back. When I spoke, they listened and acted. Braxton viewed me as an outdated piece of furniture he could not wait to discard, so he could truly take control. He wanted to be the main man, but I was in the way. He saw my competence as a threat to his own power. He wanted a kingdom that he had not built. Braxton started undermining me. He would send company-wide emails questioning my decisions. He would change my orders without telling me. He tried to interfere with the Aethel Corp contract, making foolish suggestions that almost jeopardized the deal. He tried to tell me how to run the logistics for the biggest client. He told me to cut corners and ignore regulations. I protected the contract, but it made him hate me more. The contract was like my child, and he was trying to harm it. I knew my time was limited. I saw the writing on the wall. Mr. Sinclair was getting older and letting his son do whatever he wanted. The promise of retirement security felt hollow. I had already begun putting my ultimate contingency plan into motion, a plan I had been quietly weaving into the fabric of the company for years, anticipating this precise moment of betrayal. I had built an escape route and a weapon. My plan was a secret kept deep inside my chest. The confrontation happened in the main executive conference room, with several key managers present. We were supposed to be reviewing the quarterly budget, but Braxton had another agenda. He cornered me, screaming about a minor scheduling issue he had himself created earlier that day. He did not care about the schedule. He just wanted to make a show of power. He wanted to look big in front of the others. He pounded his fist on the table. The loud sound made the coffee cups jump. "You're too old, Dominic," he shouted. His face was red and sweat was starting on his forehead. "You're slow and you're stuck in the past. Your methods are old news. We need new, modern leadership here." He stood over me, trying to look intimidating. "You're done here," Braxton said. "You're fired. Get out of my office and don't come back." He spat the words out like poison. The silence in the room was thick with shock. The managers all stared at the table, refusing to look at me or him. Mr. Sinclair was absent, conveniently overseas, letting his son do the dirty work. He was either a coward or a fool for not being here. I did not raise my voice. I did not plead. I did not show any of the pain he wanted to see. I looked Braxton straight in the eye, maintaining a terrifying calm. He expected me to beg, to fight, to lose control. He expected me to break. I gave him none of it. I just looked at him like he was a foolish child. "I accept your decision, Braxton," I said. My voice was low and steady. It was the calmest voice in the entire room. But before I leave, there is one detail about Aethel Corp that you should know. I paused for a long moment. I let the words hang in the air. I let the silence become heavy. I wanted him to wonder. Braxton waved his hand dismissively. He thought he had won. He thought he was the powerful man in the room. Who cares? He said. It's just paper. We'll renew it. It's an automatic thing. He thought the contract was just another folder in a filing cabinet. He had no idea what he had done. He had no idea he had just destroyed his own future. I opened my briefcase and placed a single sealed document on the table. The document was a copy of the official operating agreement for Aethel Corp. It was a heavy, official-looking document with many pages. The Aethel Corp contract generates 60% of Sinclair Logistics' annual revenue, I explained. It's due for its annual renewal in 72 hours. I paused again, allowing the weight of that truth to settle on the stunt managers. They knew what that number meant. I know this because I am not just the contract manager, I said. My eyes never left Braxton's face. The managers shifted in their seats. They looked from me to the document and then back to Braxton. They were starting to understand. Their eyes were wide with a growing horror. They knew the company could not live without that contract. I pushed the document across the table toward Braxton. It slid silently on the polished wood. I am the owner of the contract, I said. Not the manager, the owner. The signature on the document, listed as the sole proprietor and signatory, was mine, Dominic. The quiet genius wasn't an employee. He was the silent principal of the company's lifeblood. I was the source of all their money. Braxton snatched the paper. He laughed, a nervous, desperate sound. It was not a sound of true humor. This is a joke, a fake, he cried out. A prank. Dad would never let you have that much power. You're making this up to save your job. He was panicking inside, but he was trying to hide it with anger. Your father gave me an option 20 years ago, I said. He wanted my complete commitment to his business. He wanted me to make the Aethel Corp contract work, no matter what. He wanted me to guarantee its success. In exchange, he offered me a stake in the most vital contract, in exchange for my commitment and my silence. He did not want anyone else to know about this arrangement. I took it. The contract was structured legally as a private entity that Sinclair Logistics serviced. My firing was a catastrophic error. I put out my formal one-sentence resignation letter. It was clean and simple. I had prepared it months ago. I signed it with a slow, deliberate movement. The sound of the pen scratching on the paper was loud in the suddenly silent room. I slid it next to the Aethel Corp document. My resignation is effective immediately, I said. I looked at the stunned managers. They looked like statues. They were all silent, waiting for the next blow. My company, Aethel Corp, is now formally serving Sinclair Logistics, with notice of non-renewal and immediate termination of all services and contracts effective in 48 hours. I had given them 48 hours to fall apart. That was the only kindness I would show them. I gave them a small head start on the chaos. The core managers started panicking. They understood the gravity of what I had said. They knew I was not lying. They knew the company was finished. The Aethel Corp contract wasn't just shipping. It was specialized. Bespoke logistics that only I knew how to manage. It was a unique service tailored by me. I had set up the entire supply chain to run through proprietary software that I owned. It was a system that could not be easily copied or replaced. I took out my phone and sent a single text to my remote team. My team was loyal to me, not to Sinclair Logistics. They had been waiting for this text for a long time. The text said, "Initiate Protocol Zeus." All operational links to the Aethel Corp contracts were cut instantly, bringing 60% of the company's work to a screeching halt. The systems went dark. The data vanished. The connection was broken. Braxton desperately tried to call his father, Mr. Sinclair. He grabbed his phone and started shaking as he tried to dial. But I knew where he was, out of satellite range. He had planned his trip to avoid this very kind of company trouble. He had left his son in charge to handle the firing, thinking it would be simple. I looked at Braxton, watching the arrogant facade crumble. His face was pale and wet with tears of fear. "Your father can't save you," I said. He knew the risk he was taking by letting you play with his company. He let you run wild. He chose your ego over the survival of his business. He chose the name Sinclair over the one who did the work. Now you have ruined his company in 10 minutes. I did not need to shout. The quiet truth was louder than any scream. The key managers looked at Braxton with sheer loathing. They understood that their paychecks, their mortgages, and their children's schooling were now gone. They knew I was the one who worked late, the one who solved problems, and the one who secured their jobs. Now, they were facing unemployment because of the rich, spoiled boy who wanted to play CEO. The silent fury directed at Braxton was its own form of revenge. It was a powerful, silent weapon pointed right at his heart. I packed my personal items, which amounted to a single framed photograph of my children. That was all I needed from that building. Everything else of value was already mine. I stopped at the door. Braxton was still screaming, holding the contract like a lifeline, his voice cracking with hysteria. He looked completely defeated. "You'll regret this," he shrieked. "You'll be nothing. This is illegal. You'll lose everything." He was trying to sound powerful, but he only sounded pathetic. He was running out of words to hurt me. "No, Braxton," I said. "I am the owner of Aethel Corp. I am the one who holds the contract. I am the one who controls 60% of your old company's business. You are now the one who is nothing." I walked out, leaving the stunned managers and the panicking Braxton in the ruins of the conference room. My steps were light and strong. I was finally free. Within hours, news of the massive contract loss leaked. The business world moves fast. People talk. And the truth, no matter how crazy, always gets out. Sinclair Logistics stock plummeted. It went from a good price to a joke in a single morning. Clients started calling in a panic, wanting to know what was going on. They were all afraid of their own supply chain breaking. The other 40% of the business was not enough to keep the doors open, especially since the infrastructure was designed to support the Aethel Corp scale. The company went into a critical tailspin, exactly as I had planned. The financial bomb I had built had finally exploded. Mr. Sinclair flew back immediately, frantic. He looked years older than he had just a week ago. He called me, begging for a meeting. His voice was full of shock and fear. "Dominic, please, we can fix this. He didn't know the truth. He didn't know." He tried to put all the blame on his son. I took the call. "You let him fire the man who kept your business alive for 2 decades, Mr. Sinclair," I said. "You chose the boy over the brains. You chose a loud, spoiled child over quiet, constant work. The price of that choice is your company." He tried to appeal to our shared history, the years we had worked side by side. He tried to remind me of his old promises. I was cold. That history ended when you let your son humiliate me in front of the people I managed. You chose to let me be disgraced. I didn't stop at bankruptcy. Because of the way the Aethel Corp contract was structured, I had a legal claim to much of the operational equipment and specialized facilities that I had helped pay for over the years. This was part of the original agreement. I legally and swiftly transferred those assets to Aethel Corp. Sinclair Logistics was stripped bare, left with just the name and the debt. The company was now an empty shell. I took the valuable parts and left the trash behind. Braxton tracked me down. He was no longer arrogant. He was sweating, pleading. He had bags under his eyes, and his suit was wrinkled. He looked like a beggar. "I can work for you, Dominic. I'll do anything. Just give the contract back," he begged. He had nothing left to offer. I looked at him with quiet contempt. "You call me old and a nobody, Braxton. You call me an outdated piece of furniture. Now you want to work for the nobody?" I shook my head. "You are unstable, unprofessional, and incapable. You have no value to my company." I dismissed him with a wave of my hand, just like he had dismissed me when he fired me. Braxton realized the true scale of his personal downfall. He wasn't just unemployed. He was the public face of the company's destruction. The managers he had lorded over were now looking for new jobs, blaming him openly. His privileged life was over. He was a laughingstock in the industry. The very thing he had wanted power had become his ruin. With the assets secured and the contract intact, I relaunched my business, Aethel Corp, with a clean slate. I hired the most talented managers who had been fired from Sinclair Logistics. I offered them ownership stakes. I gave them what Mr. Sinclair had only promised me. The talent followed the contract, and the contract followed me. My revenge had birthed a far stronger company. Mr. Sinclair was forced to file for bankruptcy. His retirement was destroyed by the debt and the collapse of the company he had failed to protect from his own son. He was left with nothing but the crushing guilt of choosing his arrogant son over the loyalty of his most crucial employee. The shame was a heavy, constant weight. Neither Braxton nor Mr. Sinclair found work in the industry again. Braxton's reputation as the man who destroyed Sinclair Logistics was a permanent black mark. He was forced to move back home, financially dependent on his ruined father. They were isolated and disgraced. The powerful father and the arrogant son were just two men with no future. I secured my children's future 10 times over. The risk I had taken was calculated, and the payoff was immense. I was the CEO of a highly profitable, successful logistics firm, built on the assets I had protected and the contract I had owned all along. I had all the money I would ever need. The humiliation of being called old and fired in front of my peers was repaid with a clean, total corporate takeover. My silence for 2 decades was not weakness. It was the construction of the ultimate financial bomb. When they decided to detonate my life, they only succeeded in detonating their own. The justice was sweet and complete. Braxton would forever live in the shadow of the man he called nobody. He was an economic pariah, stripped of his privilege, while I flourished. The power dynamic was flipped permanently. He would never again look down on a man who works. Braxton and Mr. Sinclair were left with only debt, shame, and ruin. Their company was gone. My company, Aethel Corp, thrived. The one who was cold fired walked away with the contract, the assets, and the undisputed control of the industry sector. The boss's son thought he was firing an employee, but he was actually handing the keys to his father's kingdom to its new, rightful owner.